Click. How you guys doing? We're back. We took a week off. The Oversteer TV online podcast, volume 11, I believe this is. We're ready to go. Here's my partner in crime there, Jeff Brown. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great. The Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup. I've been on cloud nine all week long.
There you go. There you go. You're happy, actually. I actually watched the last 5 minutes. I watched hockey for the first time in years, and I only watched a few minutes. The end.
Well, that's all you needed to see.
Yeah. Congratulations to the Florida Panthers. That makes, if you consider the Florida Panthers a Miami team, I don't, but if you do, that makes Miami the sixth city that have won a championship in all four major sports in the United States: baseball, football, basketball, and
Well,
Canadian.
They started out in Miami, the old Miami Arena.
Yeah, but
so they are a Miami team.
Nah, that's like saying the Rams are a St. Louis team. Well, they used to play in St. Louis.
Yeah, but Los Angeles and St. Louis are a little farther apart than Miami and Fort Lauderdale.
I got into a big argument on Twitter with that. And I go, they play in a different county. They're not even in the same area code. And they're going to have their parade in Fort Lauderdale. They're not a Miami team.
They're a South Florida team. South Florida team.
No. South Florida is the only people call it South Florida. People live in Broward and Palm Beach.
And I consider anything south of Lake Okeechobee as South Florida.
Tell that to the people in Naples.
They're in South Florida too. Anything south of Lake Okeechobee is South Florida.
Yeah, people from Broward saying they live in Miami is like people from New Jersey saying they live in New York City. Yeah, nobody's buying it. Anyway. Oh, we're a motorsports show anyway.
That's right. Let's stay on topic.
I'm sure you too. I want to send out our thoughts and prayers, if you're into that, to John Force. I'm sure you saw the accident he had last week, 300 miles an hour. He's been somewhat good news. He was removed from trauma intensive care unit to a neuro intensive care unit today, in which they can focus on his head injury, which is their primary concern, as the press release says. He's been there for a few days. This looks pretty serious. He's one of the good guys. There's no better interview in motorsports than John Force. All you got to do is just hold the microphone to his mouth, go, "Hey, John, how you doing?" And he got 10 minutes of gold.
Yeah, I'm sure this is a retirement for him right now. I don't think there's going to be any more racing for John Ford.
Yeah. He's been getting, I think he's 71 or 72.
Yeah, he should have retired a while back.
Yeah, it's amazing he was still competitive at that age. He still had the reaction times that you need in drag racing. His daughter, who's also a big time drag racer, she's going to be she won't be racing next week and this week in the Cornwall Tour and at the races in Ohio, NHRA races. Of course, she's going to be with her father, and we wish them all the best. And hopefully, everything comes out okay for John, and he can at least return to the track and keep on running that team.
I think Dale Jr. called him the Dale Earnhardt of drag racing.
To all due respect to Dale Jr., that's an insult. He's the Richard Petty of drag racing. He's the he is the man. I mean, I can't think of anybody bigger in drag racing ever.
Yeah. Well, maybe Big Daddy Don Garlitz.
Yeah, maybe Don Garlitz. That's about it.
So I would say Don Garlitz is the Richard Petty and John Force is the Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, that could maybe you're right. Yep, I stand corrected. There you go. Anyway, all the best to them, and I'm really hoping.
Yeah, we're leading off with drag racing. We need to have Joe Costello on here.
Yeah, we got to get him on here and tell him to explain bracket racing to me. Yeah, which has always been my one thing. I always get into arguments with drag racing thing, bracket racing. It's the only racing in the world where if you go too fast, you lose. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, we got to get Joe on. We got to do something with drag racing. Drag racing is really growing in the States. It's always been big, but it's getting really big now. And the
Yeah.
NHRA is, I mean, nobody's talking about it really. It's getting so popular, but then the mainstream motorsports aren't talking about it, but it's getting huge, especially on TV. And the crowds are selling out everywhere. So let's get Joe on or some other drag racer on or something. What else happened? We took a week off because I was out of town. I was on vacation with the wife, visiting family and everything. What else happened? Anything happened in NASCAR interesting?
Yeah, NASCAR ran with rain weather tires, wet weather tires over the weekend, and I think that was a huge success as far as the drivers had never been out on an oval track while it was wet with wet tires on, and so nobody knew what to expect, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed watching it. The racetrack widened out, because usually dry weather racetracks are very narrow groove.
Right.
With the wet track, it widened out 5-6 lanes wide. Cars were just everywhere, down on the apron, up against the wall. It was a lot of fun to watch. I kind of really enjoyed that.
I actually caught that because when I got back on my trip, it was Sunday, and I went, well, let me watch the IndyCar race, and because of the rain delay, it preempted the IndyCar race, and so my DVR didn't catch it. I had to go switch over. They put the IndyCar race on CNBC, if you can believe that. Okay. But yeah, I caught that, and I saw they were having NASCAR was having a little problem. What to do? The track is drying. What do we do? I'm just screaming, let them run. If somebody wants to put on dries, let them put on dries. If somebody wants to keep on but NASCAR is trying to figure out stuff and everybody's on the radio. But it was a good show. I've been saying for years, it's raining. Okay, throw on the wets. Get out there and race.
Well, actually, they weren't running in the rain. These were just for a wet track, drying track. Right. If it had started raining, they didn't have windshield wipers on the cars. They would have stopped it again. But in order to not have to wait 3 hours to dry the track, you can just put wet weather tires on there and let them run. Now, this was a short track. I'm not sure that they could do that somewhere like Talladega or Daytona. That would be really interesting to see.
I would actually pay to see that.
I'm saying short tracks, and I think they're going to be more open to that in the future as far as the track not having to be completely dry. And I've said that for a long time. Just put the wet weather tires on there and let them go out there and do it.
I think they're learning, especially after a few weeks ago with the Charlotte race that was delayed and they had to run it the next day and everything. They realize this is costing them money and they're losing valuable TV time's expensive. Okay. Yeah. And they're redoing their contracts and everything. And you have a certain window to show the race on TV. And if you lose it, nobody's skipping work to watch a NASCAR race on a Monday.
It switches over to USA and everybody misses the end of the race.
Right. So
I thought I had missed the end of the race. And like you, I switched over to watch the IndyCar race. And then I got to see the end of the NASCAR race, but I never did get to see the IndyCar race. I didn't see it. I was able to find one of my favorite IndyCar tracks, and one of the sections of the track there that's very iconic, sort of like Eau Rouge for Formula One, is the corkscrew.
Laguna.
Laguna Seca. That's one of my favorite parts there because it's just like an S turns going straight down. That's crazy. I've always wanted to see that in person because you can't really see the elevation change from the TV.
I've been to Laguna. I went to Laguna once 4 years ago, but there was no racing going on. I was just driving through the area. So I got to check this out. I've never been here. And that's a drop. I remember looking up there and I go, "Oh, that must be fun dropping off that wall." I mean,
It's like
it's literally driving off a cliff.
You got to lose your stomach over that thing every time, like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's the IndyCar race. I don't know if you
Who
caught
won
any
that, by the
of it
way?
at all. Did you catch any of it at all? Or
I did not catch any of it. I had watched everything on delay, so it was over by the time I started watching.
Oh, well, I was able to
Who
catch
won?
the last third. Of course, it's a typical IndyCar race. A lot of stupid moves out there. IndyCar, I'm like really beginning to worry now that IndyCar is starting to let, because some bang and some pushing and shoving. It's exciting. The fans love that, but I think they're letting it go a little too far, and I'm afraid that somebody's going to get hurt soon if they keep this up without punishing some of these drivers and say, "Hey, back off a little bit." There's like literally it was looking like some old school NASCAR retaliation going on out there, and that's like you can't do that in an open wheel car. It's just not smart.
So who won it? I don't even know who won the race.
Palau for Ganassi. He controlled the last third of the race. He was like totally in command. Even when like a yellow flag come out and pit stops, he dropped back a few. As soon as the flag went green, bam, he was right up in front, and then he was just cruising away. He had that race all to himself. Of course, there was more. Once again, IndyCar can't avoid the controversy. With about 20 some laps to go and everything, there was a big accident. Two cars. One of them was Graham Rahal. I forgot who the other guy was. It was as soon as it happened, should have been a full course yellow. Close the pits was what IndyCar does. No, there's like busted cars on both sides of the track, pieces everywhere. IndyCar doesn't throw a full course yellow until Joseph Newgarden, Penske, who also happens to own the series, by the way, gets to pull into the pits, gets a free pit stop, comes out, and then they throw a full course yellow. Bam! All of a sudden, Newgarden's in the lead. Yeah, people weren't happy with that at all. It was like,
well, I'm glad I missed that then.
Yeah, it was like I'm watching on TV. Is how come they're not throwing a yellow? Where's the yellow? Even the announcer's going, "What's going on? Where's the yellow? Where's the yellow?" Then you see Newgarden leaving the pits. Now's the yellow.
Now's the
yellow. I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to have to do something. It's the problem. The thing is with Penske owning the series as a businessman, yeah, he's probably the right man to own the series. But the problem is he's a team owner, and he's also
a conflict of interest.
And he's a very successful team owner, so he's always going to be up there near the front. His teams, his drivers, and so that's always, part of me says, "Hey, there's just no win for him if he does that." But pardon me.
He's arguably the most successful team owner in the history of motorsports. I don't know any team owner that would be more successful in all forms of racing. But maybe Petty Motorsports, like you said, mentioned maybe. Richard Petty earlier.
But something's got, I can see Roger maybe doing something like handing over the team to somebody or something, because every time this happens, it builds up more and more and more. Yeah, probably half of it's just BS anyway, but optics are important. People have to see and believe that it's all in the up and up. So we got to see what happens with that. My thing I'm still catching up on since I came back Sunday is the 24 hours of Le Mans. I still got like 14 hours more to watch.
You try to watch the entire race, right?
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Le Mans for a lot of Americans, it's kind of like they've heard of it, they know of it, but they're not that familiar with it. It is getting bigger and bigger, the whole series. NASCAR has 3 manufacturers, right? Ford, Chevy, and Toyota. Right. IndyCar has 2 manufacturers, Chevrolet and Honda. Formula One has, I believe, 5 manufacturers. Le Mans had 14 factory teams involved in the race. And now supposedly Hyundai is joining up for next year, and Aston Martin and McLaren. It's incredible. The cars are just spectacular. I don't know if you saw them. If you go online, you can see highlights and stuff. The cars are spectacular. The speeds are spectacular. It's just incredible. I don't know. They got the formula just right, and nobody's running away with it either. It's a very competitive series. So watch 24 Hours Le Mans. Watch the World Endurance Championship. Do it.
Well, I've never watched 24 hours of a 24-hour race, but I do like to stop in every so often and see, what's happening. Mm-hmm. Sort of like 24-hour Daytona, which is always the first race of the entire racing season.
Yeah, the IMSA season.
Everything started.
If you're familiar with IMSA, think of Le Mans and the whole the World Endurance Championship Series as IMSA on steroids. It's and the IMSA cars are there. There's a class they can run those. The what do they call them? LMDH. Yeah, Le Mans, the Daytona prototypes, or when the IMSA calls them GTP, they're the same cars they can run in Le Mans too, and they do quite well.
I always look forward to Sebring. Maybe we'll, because we've always done the Sebring race. Maybe we'll do it again this year coming up.
Oh no, Sebring's already passed. It's next year.
That's what I mean. That's what I meant. Next year.
Yeah. I didn't go this year. I was very disappointed I wasn't able to go. Sebring's probably my favorite race that I've been to. I love the Midway. A lot of fun stuff goes on there.
I remember we went down the Midway, and I was actually scared for my life. And that doesn't happen very often.
Well, you should have been, because if somebody had attacked us, I was going to use you I was going to sacrifice you.
Well, we went in there with a video camera and microphone and stuff, stupidly.
Yeah.
And when everybody saw that video camera and microphone, they almost flipped their car over. It was like we were lucky to get out of there alive.
I remember the really interesting thing is when we went to Sebring, like the next weekend after the 12-hour, because there was going to be this is back in the day, a Champ Car, and we went to see Champ Car testing there, and we were just looking around the debris that was left, sofas, burned out cars, condoms everywhere.
Refrigerators. There's like an entire living room set up with lamps and lampshades, and
it was hilarious. If you haven't been to the 12 hours of Sebring, you gotta go, and you gotta go into the Midway. It's everything great about America.
I know when we went in there, it was a lot of fun, but when we left, I was breathing a big sigh of relief that we made it out of there alive.
You needed a tetanus shot after you left that place.
So I want to do that again.
Well, we'll do
Let's
it.
Do it next year. We'll do a podcast.
They released their schedule for next year. I'll mark us down. Let's get a reservation. Well, we can go just for the day because it's only a couple hour drive. But
yeah,
I'd like to do that. Go out there for the day. We'll get credentials and check it out. Because now it's.
And also, I also extremely enjoy the Tampa race, St. Petersburg.
That's a good race.
Race, yeah.
Oh, and you heard the big news for us. Formula E is coming back. And they're going to race at Homestead this time.
Awesome. So, I've been saying they need to get more races in Homestead because just one weekend, one NASCAR race a year. You've got this huge track that we could get Indycar back. Formula E. I'm excited to hear that.
Formula E started with their whole series was they were going to race in downtowns on street courses, short street courses, setting up, and they're doing that for years. Now they're kind of changing their formula a bit, where they're going to have a race this week they're actually in the United States coming up. in Portland, and they're using the Portland track, the same one Indycar uses. I think they do like a modified course. I assume they're probably going to do the same thing at Homestead. Use the modified road course. They're going to more road courses and stuff because I think now the cars are because at the beginning the cars weren't that fast. You're talking 200 horsepower. They're they were slower than like a Formula 3000 car or something. They weren't very fast. Now they're up to over 400 horsepower. Now they can move, and so those little miniature street courses they were doing just wasn't working for them. The series is getting bigger and bigger every year. I know when it first came out, people saying, "Oh, it's a joke, it's a gimmick," but it's working. People like it. People are following it, and they have some really good drivers in there. And
except it's too quiet. You don't have those loud engines. They sound like bees. Driving around the track.
You hear
they maybe get some baseball cards. Put them in the spokes of the tires.
You hear the tires squealing like crazy all the time there, and then the high-pitched whine of the motor. It's a different sound. You don't get the engine, you don't get the noise, but it's a fun series. So hopefully we can go check that out and look at all the people. Hey, Andretti's got a team in there. Penske has a team. Well, it's not Roger Penske team; it's his son's team. The one who owns all the magazines and everything. He's got a team, a lot of factory teams there too. So it should be fun. Should be interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait. Have they released a date for it yet?
I think they have. I just don't have it with me right now. I'd have to check it out. I think because Formula E, the season starts in the fall, and then it runs through the winter, and then to around this time this year. And then that's the season. It's not like everybody else who begins like in the spring and then ends in the fall. So I'll check it out. I believe they do have the schedule out already. We'll get our credentials. We'll go there and maybe run into some of the people we used to know back in the day, or maybe
back in the day.
Pardon me?
That's what I was thinking of NASCAR. They do like at Charlotte, they do the Roval. And then they run the oval. So I was thinking, they run Homestead at the end of the season in late October. I think maybe it would be a good idea for them to come down and run the road course like early season, week after Daytona, somewhere like that.
I would like to see that.
Give Homestead a second race. We've only had one race since 1996 every year. While other tracks that don't deserve two races have two races a year.
Yeah.
They do want to expand on to more road courses, and Homestead has a top-notch, world-class road course that they could run on.
They do. I know IndyCar supposedly was talking because in the future, maybe coming to Homestead. I've always said, come back to Homestead, race on the road course at night, on a Saturday night. There'll be a lot of people there.
I would be big.
We've been out there at that track sometimes. Some of the days they pick, it's like, oh, it is too damn hot out there to be standing out in the sun. When they did race the oval at night, they did okay. Not that great of a crowd because this is a sports car team, a Formula One city. They want to see road courses. Ovals weren't that big of a deal. But at least when they race at night, it was fun. It was cool. You can enjoy yourself. If you haven't been to South Florida in the summer,
don't. If you haven't been, don't.
Don't.
Because I want to leave, and I love South Florida. I love Miami. I don't want to live anywhere else, except in August and July and August. I want out of here, man.
Yeah. And even the tourists that dump come down here, they usually hang out at the beach, so they got the breeze and everything. We don't live on the beach. Most people don't live on the beach. We live in a swamp. Okay.
So if you're listening, NASCAR, we want a second race in Homestead, and let's put it on the road course.
Put it on the road course. Do that. We got Formula E. I'd like to see IMSA back here too to race on the road course. Also, heck, NASCAR, you own the track. You can put IMSA wherever you want to.
Well, NASCAR doesn't own the track; they just run the track.
It's
the city of Homestead owns the track, which I guess if you're a citizen and taxpayer in Homestead, you own a racetrack.
which is what scares me, that it's owned by the city.
Yeah.
Because every time I go by that track, there are more and more homes nearer and nearer to that track.
We're building right up to it. And you know, when NASCAR's racing out there, you can actually hear the cars from my house, and I'm far away.
Yeah, and you know how people are. You know how the old famous NIMBY people. They move in. There's the same people who move next to an airport, complain about the noise. They're going to move next to a racetrack, and they go, "Oh, I didn't know it was going to be that loud." And they complain to the politicians. And there's one thing a politician does: they listen to the people when they complain. Local politicians, at least, and so that puts me in fear for the future of the Homestead Miami Speedway.
Well, if we get more races, and of course the Formula E, they're not going to be loud at all.
No,
and that's the future of racing. Maybe NASCAR should probably do an E racing series too. Venture into the electric car field. All the major manufacturers now have electric cars, so let's do it.
I'm still shocked they haven't at least embraced hybrid. It's been, Formula One's been doing it for 10 years. Indycar is finally doing it their next race in Mid-Ohio, which I think is like, really, that only took them 10 years. But NASCAR, I'm surprised.
Usually manufacturers and consumer cars follow racing, but in this case, it's the opposite.
Yeah,
racing is slow to follow the consumer.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that the manufacturers, people like Toyota, who are the king of hybrid, they haven't told NASCAR, "Hey, we want to run hybrids." You can run the same motor, put a little hybrid thing there, and just say we're a hybrid. An extra 50 horsepower or something. And Chevy and Ford, they all have hybrid cars. I'm surprised they haven't do that, because it's the manufacturers, the people who actually pay the bills. All right. Yeah. So I'm NASCAR, and especially that would appease the older fans, the ones who say, "Oh no, I'll never drive an electric car." Do a hybrid for a while, get them into it a bit before eventually you do go all EV, which will happen sooner than later.
Well, speaking of Toyota, Toyota driver Aric Almirola, Florida boy from Tampa, I believe, has been suspended.
What did he do?
From Joe Gibbs Racing for getting into a physical altercation with Bubba Wallace during some Toyota team meeting that they had, I think last year. And evidently, I don't know all the particulars, but evidently he punched Bubba Wallace in the face or something like that. And now he's been suspended by Joe Gibbs Racing. And, because there's only a couple teams that run Toyota in NASCAR. Mm-hmm. Everybody runs Chevys and Fords, but obviously the king of Toyota and NASCAR is Joe Gibbs. And so they team with the 2311, the Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin team. Mm-hmm. Then they share data. And evidently they were having a big Toyota meeting between the two teams, and there was a physical altercation that got Aric Almirola suspended from the Xfinity series because he no longer drives in the Cup series. Yeah. But
well, he must have done something really stupid.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall there, right?
Yeah. That doesn't look good for Toyota. I'm sure the people in the boardroom were not happy about that. No. And as soon as it happened in private and they still suspended him, that means he must have been a real jerk that day.
Like you said, nobody was there. That was a closed meeting. So in order for them to even come out,
normally in a closed meeting, they would have, if they had gotten into a fight, they would have said, "Okay, don't do that anymore," and like kept it quiet, not tell anybody. But by telling people that it actually happened, that means something happened there that's not cool. Almirola was a guy who should have been bigger than what he is. I don't know. He's kind of like, for a couple of years, he was like the next new thing coming up, but He kind of just
Well, then
faded.
he then started driving for Richard Petty, and that Petty team has always been a second-rate team for years and years, and still is. Even though now Jimmy Johnson is part owner of that Petty team, and they changed the name,
Oh, okay.
they're still not running up to the standards that they really should be.
No, the Petty team definitely fell off the last 5-6 years or so.
30 years.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, he's
Richard Petty is occasional race, and that's about it.
Yeah, the thing with Richard Petty is the Richard Petty of NASCAR, and he'll always have sponsors and he'll always have money to race because he's Richard freaking Petty. All right.
And in great shape for his age. I mean, he's incredible. He still shows up to the racetracks. He looks great.
Mm-hmm.
He's always been very thin. So just because he's thin doesn't mean he's not healthy. That's the way he's always been.
Yeah. Nice guy too. Whenever I've interacted with him, he's always been super professional, super nice, and everything.
In fact, when we first started, had the idea of getting a video camera and a microphone, he was my very first interview. Wow.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
And that was before we ever had a TV show, and Dick Brown showed up at the Speedway with a microphone. It was sort of like build it and they'll come. Go out there and start doing interviews, and voila, we got a TV show.
There you go. Wonder whatever happened to that video.
I've got it somewhere. It's on some tape that I probably can't play because I don't have a working camera to play it back on.
Oh, well.
Like an old 8mm videotape or something.
Oh, it's better than Super 8. All right, so I'll be going on Twitter now and going free Aric Almirola, hashtag free Aric Almirola. And also, anybody has a 8mm Super 8 VHS, Super 8 video tape.
Well, I think I got one somewhere packed away in a closet. It's just I've got like a couple thousand tapes to go through to try to find it.
Oh.
And one day when I have time, I'll hire somebody. When I have money, I'll hire somebody to sit down and catalog all these tapes. I do have the old TV shows that are cataloged, so we do have them.
I got some of that stuff on a external hard drive. Some shows and some old videos of ours. I'm going to pull them up there, start popping them back up on YouTube and stuff, just to see if there's anybody. We interviewed a couple of important people, so we'll dig that up. That's for next week because we got to wrap this show up. We're running out of time.
Okay, well, we didn't do Formula One.
Pardon me?
We didn't cover Formula One.
Verstappen won.
Had another great race.
It was a good race, but we'll have to save that for next week because we're running out of time here. I only got a few seconds left. I want to thank everybody. Click subscribe, quick like, do all the stuff, do everything. Hi to our guys on Spotify. I'm Tony Castanera. This is Jeff Brown. See you next week, guys.